When I first met Emma, I didn't think twice about her. She was introduced to me as my husband Alex's stepsister. Tall, confident, a little too polished, like someone who always knew she had a presence. But siblings can be different, right? Opposites, even. I remember shaking her hand at our engagement dinner, and the first thing she said wasn't, "Congratulations," but, "Wow, I didn't expect Alex to settle down so fast." At the time, I thought she was just being sarcastic, or maybe a little socially awkward. I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. Alex and I had been together for 3 years before we got married. He was calm, kind, the sort of man who remembered your coffee order and noticed when you were tired without saying a word. He came from a complicated family. His father had remarried twice, and Emma was the daughter of his second stepmother. He always referred to her as his stepsister, but never really elaborated. I figured it wasn't my business to pry into their childhood. Maybe that was my mistake. From the start, Emma always seemed around. At birthdays, holidays, casual barbecues, even once at our weekend getaway with friends. She wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway, saying Alex had mentioned it casually in a text and she thought it was fine. Alex brushed it off, saying she was just like that, always popping in and treating people's plans like open doors. He said they were close growing up, practically raised together for a few years before their parents divorced. But something about the way she looked at him unsettled me. It wasn't just that she was overfamiliar, it was the way she touched him. A hand on his knee that lingered too long, a shoulder rub in the kitchen that felt too intimate, hugs that pressed just a bit too close. I started to feel paranoid. I brought it up once after a family dinner. I told Alex I felt uncomfortable with how she interacted with him. He looked genuinely surprised. "That's just Emma," he said, smiling like it was funny. "She doesn't have boundaries, but it's harmless. She's always been like that." Harmless. That word rattled around in my head like a loose screw. Then came the night everything changed. We were hosting a small gathering at our place. Nothing big, just a few friends, a little music, some wine. Emma showed up late as usual, wearing a dress that screamed for attention. I tried to ignore her, tried to focus on the guests, on enjoying the evening, but I couldn't help noticing the way she kept finding reasons to be near Alex, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, whispering things in his ear that made him smile, and once, even brushing a bit of lint off his collar so slowly it made my skin crawl. As the night wore on, people started to leave. I was in the kitchen cleaning up, and something told me to go back to the living room. I don't know why, I just had this sudden sick feeling in my stomach. And when I walked in, I saw Emma sitting beside Alex on the couch, her hand on his thigh, leaning in so close her lips were almost touching his ear. He didn't look uncomfortable. He looked engaged. They both jumped a little when they saw me. Emma laughed it off, saying she was just telling him something funny from work. Alex stood up quickly like he knew he'd been caught doing something wrong, even if he didn't quite admit it. I didn't say anything then. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked Alex again, bluntly this time, if anything had ever happened between him and Emma. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "What? No, absolutely not. That's disgusting. She's my sister." But the way he said it felt rehearsed, defensive, not confused. He kept repeating the same line. "She's my sister. You're overthinking. You're being jealous. Jealous." Another word that sat like acid in my throat. I decided to dig. If I was wrong, I'd apologize. But if I was right, I needed to. No, I started with public records. I figured if they were raised together, there had to be something. A shared address growing up, school records, family photos. But the more I looked, the more things didn't add up. Emma's mother had been married to Alex's dad for less than 2 years, and during that time, Alex was away at boarding school. They didn't grow up together. They barely even overlapped. Then I found something even stranger. Emma wasn't listed as a legal stepchild. There were no adoption records, no school photos, nothing connecting her to Alex's family beyond a brief marriage between her mom and his dad. And that marriage ended almost 2 decades ago. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding. They weren't siblings. Not really, not even close. I needed more. I needed proof. Not just legal facts, but confirmation of what my gut had been screaming all along. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through Alex's old phone. I knew the password. He hadn't changed it in years. I justified it to myself with every breath. If I'm wrong, I'll come clean. If I'm right, I need to know. What I found made my blood run cold. Old messages, deleted, but not permanently. Some were flirty. Some crossed lines. One, dated back before we got engaged, simply read, "It's always been you. I don't care what people think." It was from Emma, and he had replied. I closed the phone and sat in the dark, shaking. My husband had been lying to me. About everything. I don't even remember falling asleep that night. My mind was a blur of disbelief and fury, the kind that simmers quietly but feels like it could explode at any moment. When I woke up the next morning, Alex was already in the kitchen making coffee like nothing had happened. He smiled at me like he always did, and for a second I wondered if I could pretend. Just for a little while longer. But I couldn't. I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing but betrayal. "I know. She's not your sister," I said. His smile disappeared instantly. He set the coffee mug down slowly, like he was trying to figure out what I meant and how much I knew. I didn't wait for him to respond. I told him everything. The records, the deleted messages, the truth I'd uncovered. I laid it out calmly, not shouting, not crying, just done. He didn't deny it. Instead, he sat down, ran a hand over his face and said, "It's complicated." Complicated. That word again. Like it somehow excused the lying, the manipulation, the years of letting me think I was crazy for feeling like something was off. I asked him directly, what was she to him? Had they been together? Was it still going on? He didn't say anything at first. Then, finally, he looked up and said, "We were something. Before. A long time ago." "Before me?" I asked. He hesitated. That silence was its own answer. "I thought it was over," he added quickly. "When we got serious, I ended it. She didn't. She still texts, still calls, still shows up. I've told her to stop." "Have you?" I asked. Because it sure didn't look like that the other night. He didn't have a reply. And that silence? It broke something in me. I packed a bag that day. Not because I was ready to leave forever, but because I needed space. I needed to think, to breathe, to be somewhere that didn't smell like lies. He didn't try to stop me. He just sat there, watching me with that same blank expression he used when trying not to lose control. I went to stay with my friend Mariah. She's one of those friends who doesn't ask 100 questions unless you want her to. When I showed, up on her doorstep with my bag and red-rimmed eyes, she opened the door, hugged me tightly, and simply said, "You can stay as long as you need." Over the next few days, I started piecing things together. I went back through old memories with fresh eyes. How Emma had always hovered, how Alex would go quiet when her name came up, how he'd insist nothing was wrong whenever I asked. It was like watching the same movie, but finally understanding all. The hidden subtext. Mariah helped me dig deeper. We found old photos on Emma's social media. Years ago, before she set her profiles to private. There were pictures of her and Alex that didn't look like siblings at all. Him with his arm around her waist, her kissing his cheek with that possessive grin, comments with inside jokes, heart emojis. It was all there, in plain sight, just waiting for me to stop believing the lie. One night, about a week after I left, I got a message from Emma. It was short. "I guess he finally told you." I didn't respond, but then she sent another. Don't blame him too much. He really did love you. But some things never go away. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room. But I didn't. I showed Mariah instead. She read it slowly and handed the phone back to me. She's not just smug, she said. She's dangerous and manipulative. I didn't disagree. A few days later, Alex called. He'd been texting too, but I hadn't replied. This time, I picked up. I don't know why. Maybe part of me still wanted answers, or closure, or something I could use to finally move on. I messed up, he said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I wanted to say it out loud. I asked him how long it had been going on. The full truth. He told me they had been together briefly, almost 10 years ago, before he met me. But after their parents divorced, they reconnected as adults. It had started again, briefly, after we began dating, but he claimed it ended before he proposed. He swore it was over. But you kept lying, I said. Even when I asked. You let me think I was crazy. He agreed. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought it would ruin everything. It already did. He asked me to come home. Not to forget everything, but to talk in person. I don't want to lose you over a mistake I already made. But it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, a pattern, a betrayal he watched me suffer through and did nothing to stop. I told him I'd think about it. I didn't go back right away. I stayed at Mariah's, started seeing a therapist, even took a few days off work to just sit with everything. I cried a lot. But more than that, I started to feel a strange kind of clarity, like my brain was finally unscrambling a puzzle. It had been forced to solve in the dark. He had made his choices. So now it was time for me to make mine. After 2 weeks of being away from Alex, I began to feel like I was living in 2 separate timelines, one where everything was normal and one where nothing would ever be the same again. Every time I tried to recall the moments that once felt comforting, a new layer of doubt and resentment covered them. I couldn't stop seeing the way Emma touched him, or how he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. Worst of all, I couldn't unhear the things he didn't say, the lies he let me live with. I decided to meet him, not because I was ready to forgive, but because I needed to face him without the fog of heartbreak clouding my judgment. We met at a quiet cafe where no one would know us. He looked tired, older somehow, like the weight of everything had finally settled on him. I didn't feel sorry for him. He didn't waste time. I miss you, he said softly. I've missed you every single day. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the energy to argue. I let him talk. He explained again how Emma had come back into his life at a time when he was vulnerable, how the connection they once had was confusing, and how he thought it had meant something long ago, but by the time he met me, he was over it. But Emma never was, he added. She never let go. I asked him why he never told me, why he let me call her his sister, invite her into our life, our home, our memories, knowing it was all based on a lie. I didn't want to lose you, he said. I thought if I told you, it would change how you saw me. I kept thinking I'd find the right time, but it never came. And every time I asked, I replied, my voice shaking, you let me believe I was overreacting. I know, that was wrong. Wrong didn't even begin to cover it. He asked if I could give him a chance to fix things. I'll do therapy. I'll cut her out of my life completely, block her, change my number, whatever it takes. The words sounded good, almost convincing. But I'd heard so many versions of "it won't happen again" that they no longer meant anything. I told him I'd think about it, not because I was unsure, but because I needed to leave on my own terms. Over the next week, Emma kept trying to contact me. New numbers, fake Instagram accounts. One message even came through a mutual acquaintance, saying Emma wanted to explain her side. I didn't need to hear her side. I had lived it. But the final straw came when Mariah called me in the middle of the night. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her voice tight. "Emma showed up at your house. I saw her outside when I was dropping off your mail. I froze. She was knocking on the door like she owned the place. I waited around until she left, but you should know she was there. She's not letting go. That was it for me. I wasn't going to let her haunt me anymore." I texted Alex, "You need to handle this. Now. She is not a part of our life anymore. Make it clear, or there is no life to fix." He replied within seconds, "I will, I promise." I didn't hear from Emma again. After that, maybe he really did cut her off. Maybe she finally got the message. Either way, the silence was a relief. But even as I tried to rebuild things with Alex, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. We went to a few counseling sessions, tried to open up about the betrayal, the trust, the way everything had unraveled. He was trying. I could see it, but the foundation had cracked so deeply, I wasn't sure it could ever be repaired. One night we sat on the couch together, watching an old movie we used to love. For a moment, it almost felt normal. His hand reached for mine, and I let him hold it. But in the back of my mind, I was wondering how many other times he had held Emma's hand and told himself it didn't count because it was in the past, or how many truths he had rewritten to make himself feel innocent. That's when I knew. Even if he was telling the truth now, even if he meant to change, it didn't matter. I couldn't spend the rest of my life second-guessing everything he said, everything he did. I needed peace more than I needed an apology. So I made a decision. The next morning, I told him I was filing for separation. He didn't argue. Maybe he knew it was coming. Maybe part of him was relieved, too. We didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't drag each other through a war of blame. We simply sat there. Two people who once loved each other, realizing it wasn't enough anymore. I moved out a week later, officially this time. Mariah helped me find a short-term lease. I started over, quietly, slowly, without fanfare. But just when I thought it was finally over, a message appeared in my inbox from a name I hadn't seen in weeks. "Emma, I think. There's something you still don't know," it said. And just like that, everything I thought I'd survived might not have even been the worst of it. I stared at the message on my screen for a long time. "I think there's something you still don't know." It was from Emma, of course. After everything, after I had finally walked away, she still found a way to slip into my life like a shadow refusing to disappear. I should have ignored it. I should have blocked her and moved on. But part of me, against all logic, needed to know. What if there was one final piece to the puzzle? Something that would finally make all of this make sense? So I replied, one word, "What?" She answered almost immediately. "Alex wasn't just lying to you about me. He was lying about why I stayed around." I felt my stomach drop. Before I could even begin to process what she meant, she sent another message. This time, it was a screenshot, an old email chain between her and Alex. It was dated a month before our wedding. In the messages, Alex was begging her to stay close. He wrote things like, "You're the only one who understands me," and "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing marrying her." And then, in one line that burned itself into my brain, he wrote, "If this doesn't work out, I need to know you'll still be there." He was keeping her around as a backup. Not just a mistake from the past. Not just some twisted version of history he tried to bury. He had never truly chosen me. He just kept me in the front seat while Emma waited in the rearview mirror. I didn't respond to her after that. I didn't say a word to Alex. I didn't need to. I'd already walked away. But now I could finally do it without looking back. In the days that followed, I felt strangely calm, like my heart had finally stopped clinging to the idea of who Alex used to be, or who I'd wanted him to be. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was free. I started focusing on myself. Again, I went back to therapy. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I even took a weekend trip alone, something I'd never dared to do before. It felt strange at first, sitting in a cafe with no one across from me. But then I realized I liked it. I liked the quiet, the clarity, the space to just be. One afternoon, a package arrived at my apartment. There was no return address, but I knew who it was from the moment I opened it. Inside was a small box, the kind you'd keep a ring in, but instead, it held the silver necklace Alex had given me the night we got engaged. Along with it was a note. "I'm sorry I wasn't the man you believed I was. I hope one day you find someone who is." I held the necklace for a moment, then I walked straight to the trash and dropped it in. Closure doesn't come in the form of apologies. It doesn't arrive tied in a neat little bow with a final message. It comes when you stop waiting for it, when you stop needing someone else's explanation to move on. I deleted the message from Emma. I blocked her number. I deleted Alex's too. I didn't need anything else from either of them. Now, months later, I'm not the same person I was. I don't check my phone constantly, hoping for a message that will fix what broke. I don't lie awake at night wondering if I missed a sign. I've stopped blaming myself for trusting too much, for loving too fully, for believing in people who couldn't give me the same in return. The truth is, I wasn't stupid. I was loyal. I wasn't naive. I was hopeful. And now, I'm finally free of all of it. Not because someone gave me permission to heal, but because I gave it to myself, and that's the most honest love I've ever known.